There's a lot of love in this room. A lot of good people out here tonight. And actually, welcome to Raleigh.
It's good to be back in Raleigh. I'm so excited to send that piece of video to my kids. I don't know what they know what I do when I go away from home, but they'll see that and then they'll be like, wait, what were you doing?
Do they know that you're cool?
They know that I'm cool sometimes.
Well, before we dive into the questions, actually, something we were talking about backstage, something I think is really worth bringing up, is we're all here because of the creations of great writers, great artists, people that we love because they give us these amazing movies and books and comics and everything that really alters our life, really has an impact on our life. And we lost someone just a few days ago, this past week. Terry Pratchett. We lost him. Who's a fan of Terry Pratchett? As you should be. If you are not, you should be. Get on it. Start reading. You actually you wanted to share something with the audience from Terry, right?
Yeah, Terry was 66 when he passed. He had a long battle with Alzheimer's, which was so, the word ironic doesn't really do it justice, but it was so, he had one of the most brilliant minds in the history of Earth. He was an encyclopedia. Before Wikipedia, you had Terry Pratchettpedia. He could tell you from Middle English and all different languages, and he just was an incredibly accomplished writer and thinker, and before science fiction. And then he wrote probably 50 books in his lifetime. The great, for those of you who don't know him, I mean, if you think of Tolkien or you think of J.K. Rowling, in the English-speaking world, if you go to Barnes & Noble and you ask, you can go, and on the bottom of the sci-fi section, there's 12 or 13 of his books there. And if you look, you're thinking, oh wow, I never noticed that before. But if you go to anywhere in Great Britain or South Africa or Canada or Australia, New Zealand, he is just really, really well known and beloved sci-fi fantasy satirist and an author. And he, but the book, I think it was 15 or 16, 17 of his. There was a series called the Discworld series. And one of the things that is it up on the thing? Is this picture up there?
We can throw it up. There we go.
Yeah. There's Terry. So sad. I mean, it's just too young. I mean, the books that we don't have. But anyhow, one of the things that I love to do at conventions is to introduce American audiences who aren't familiar with his work to the Discworld series. The first book is The Color of Magic. And one of the great characters ever written is Twoflower, the first tourist to the Discworld. And I had the high honor and privilege of portraying Twoflower. If you see the camera that he's got around his neck, it's a picture box. And anytime he tries to take a picture, a little imp on the inside of the box is drawing the pictures. Yeah, exactly, and it goes on and on and on. So I read, it takes about 3 minutes, 3.5, 4 minutes to read the prologue for The Color of Magic, the first book in the Discworld series. So with your indulgence, I would like to read that for you now. The Color of Magic, prologue. In a distant and second-hand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, the curling star mists waver and part. See, great Achewin, the turtle, comes swimming slowly through the interstellar gulf, hydrogen frost on his ponderous limbs, his huge and ancient shell pocked with meteor craters. Through sea-sized eyes that are crusted with rheum and asteroid dust, he stares fixedly at the destination. In a brain bigger than a city, with geological slowness, he thinks only of the weight. Most of the weight is of course accounted for by Beryllia, Tabul, Great Tufan, and Jericho, the 4 giant elephants upon whose broad and star-tanned shoulders the disk of the world rests, garlanded by the long waterfall at its vast circumference and domed by the baby blue vault of heaven. Astropsychology has been as yet unable to establish what they think about. The great turtle was a mere hypothesis until the day the small and secretive kingdom of Krull, whose rimmost mountains project out over the rim fall, built a gantry and pulley arrangement at the tip of the most precipitous crag and lowered several observers over the edge in a quartz-windowed brass vessel to peer through the mist veils. The early astrozoologists, hauled back from their long dangle by enormous teams of slaves, were able to bring back much information about the shape and nature of Atuin and the elephants, but this did not resolve fundamental questions about the nature and purpose of the universe. For example, what was Atuin's actual sex? This vital question, said the astrozoologists with mounting authority, would not be answered until a larger and more powerful gantry was constructed for a deep space vessel. In the meantime, they could only speculate about the revealed cosmos. There was, for example, the theory that Atuin had come from nowhere and would continue at a uniform crawl or steady gait into nowhere for all time. This theory was popular among academics. An alternative, favored by those of a religious persuasion, was that Atuin was crawling from the birthplace to the time of mating, as were all the stars in the sky, which were obviously also carried by giant turtles. When they arrived, they would briefly and passionately mate, and for the first and only time, and from that fiery union, new turtles would be born to carry a new pattern of worlds. This was known as the Big Bang hypothesis.
To Terry.
To Terry.